are the Tory MPs dropping their standards in order to support Boris Johnson, and are we dropping our standards in what we expect of MPs?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that this question actually draws out, and I don't think it's just about Boris Johnson. I think there's a wider question about MPs here, and given some recent scandals, I think we should really rethink about how MPs are acting in public life. I do think it's only a few small examples of MPs that have been guilty of these sort of, indiscretions. And I think, it's right that we should call them out and, they should be banished from being MPs as they have been. Do I think Boris Johnson's got anything to do with those particular examples? No. Do I think he has something to do with a wider problem with MPs? No, I don't really think that there is a wider problem with MPs at the moment. I know a lot of them are making up their minds at the moment. There's a public inquiry going on, so we'll see what that actually comes out with. I mean, that could take quite a long time. So that is another consideration for MPs is, what is going to be the result of this parliamentary inquiry. So I think a lot of them are still, keeping their mouths closed at the moment and not really coming out with much to say. They're also waiting for their constituents to, write letters and see what they say. I think, it is a point that perhaps Boris, if he did believe that there was something going on, that he should have come out straight away and apologised. I mean, there was a party in the Department for Education, I believe, that happened at the same time. And they came out straight away and said, OK, yeah, we hold our hands up. This happened. We're very sorry. Nobody's talked about it since. I think the fact that this investigations and about the Partygate stand was ongoing is slightly... It's taking too long, I think.
Would it be better for Labour to have Boris Johnson as Prime Minister for the next election? And also, would it be better for the Tories to have Keir Starmer in power for the next election?
That's what I call a perfectly balanced question. Danielle Boxall, let's come to you first.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I think we're talking a lot about personalities and, charisma and how people present themselves. But I think, as much as Boris Johnson presents himself in a certain way, and perhaps Keir Starmer is the antidote to that in the way that he presents himself, I think what's really lacking from both sides is some actual policies. I mean, we've seen, obviously, the cost of living support package that was announced last week, but there isn't really anything that is sort of supporting people going into the next election. There's no sort of long-term plan there. And I think that's what I'd really like to see from both parties is what they would actually like to do.
A shiver just ran down my spine when you said long-term economic plan. Wasn't that George Osborne's slogan all the time?
I think it was, yeah. It must be stuck in my head.
But I think it's a really interesting point, though, because the Conservatives at the moment don't seem to have a narrative beyond what you were suggesting a moment ago, Joe, about sort of bringing back pounds and ounces and grammar schools and hanging next. Maybe not hanging, but you know what I mean. You've got to have a positive vision for the future. And at the moment, they're not articulating that, are they?
Yeah, and I think the problem is that, all this talk about Partygate thing is sucking a lot of the air out of the political discussion and what policies and what the actual parties want to achieve going into the next election, what their future vision for the country is. And I'd really like to see somebody actually coming forward and actually producing a kind of, plan, a document, anything that we could actually get hold of and actually see what these parties want to do when they're in power. And I think that would actually be really helpful for the electorate as well. Yeah, well, you can't deny that Boris Johnson is a sort of campaigning beast. He loves it. He absolutely feeds off of it. And he has a recognisability that no other politician has. So I do think that is a strong selling point for the Conservatives. But whether that recognisability is for slightly more tarred reasons now, that we'll be waiting to see how it sticks in people's minds. But yeah, as I said before, I think both parties... for me, it doesn't really matter who's in charge as long as somebody actually says what they want to do with the country and says, what policies they've got to bring forward, put it on the table.
What would you say to small business owners like myself who are struggling desperately to find enough staff to keep their businesses going, having weathered the pandemic, taken on a lot more debt, etc.? What would you say to us? What do you think is accounting for this terrible staff shortage, and what are the solutions?
And this is right up your street, this question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that we can talk about here, but I've worked in restaurants myself, and I know that a lot of people working in the industry have decided to take a career break or to leave the industry after COVID. They decided that the unsociable hours were not for them, especially after being, in lockdown and not going to work. They decided that they wanted to change their career paths, and that's completely understandable. But I think there is a lot that the government could be doing to help businesses to try and get more people into work. And this is a problem in rural areas, particularly businesses that are. I think it was in the Times today. They said that the high percentage of young people in rural areas do not believe that they could have a career in their local areas. They have to move to a bigger city. And I think we really need to start talking about how people can have careers in industries that, like catering, like farming, and actually do well out of it, not just, sort of office work or desk work, things like that. And we need to talk about the benefits that those bring. And even if you do want to go into desk work, you can still work in a restaurant, you can still work on a farm, and you can learn a lot about yourself and a lot about, how you work with others. And there's a lot to gain from working in those kind of environments. And I really don't think that we've been pushing that message enough recently. But in terms of what the government can be doing, I'm very disappointed to see that they've gone ahead with the employers' national insurance contribution hike, the 1.25% health and social care levy, as it's been branded. That's applying to employers as well as employees. So I think that's going to make the cost of hiring a lot more expensive, which is just more adding to this problem that we're seeing now. It's it's going to prevent employers from being able to give raises because of the burden of taxes on businesses at the moment. The business rates reforms that they've been looking at are good, but there's always more that it can be done on that. And corporation tax going up to 25% next year. Again, just completely the wrong signal to business right now. We need to be having a low, stable tax environment so that businesses know what to expect, they know what to plan for. And I think, putting taxes up right now is completely the wrong message for growth.
But when you've
jobs.
got such a deficit, you've got to get the money from somewhere. And a lot of people would argue, well, businesses had it too easy for too long in terms of taxation. We've had low taxation on most businesses. And therefore, to put it up to 25%, it does sound quite a dramatic leap from 19%, but it's still historically quite low.
But when you cut taxes for businesses, it actually does the reverse, and you actually bring in a bigger tax take because people have more money in their back pockets, businesses can grow, they can hire more people. So it's all contributing to the economy, and it's actually making for a better economic prospect for the entire nation, not just for the businesses themselves.
Okay. Can you tell me if there's any justice in this Chancellor giving £400 not to the needy, to the rich, as well as the poor? Do you think this is an absolute joke on his behalf, and should he look at it again?
Yeah, I think Freddie's right with that analysis, but I do think it's kind of sad that we've got to that state. I don't want to see billions of pounds just being thrown around here, there and everywhere. I don't think taxpayers want to be seeing billions of pounds being thrown around. I mean, it's good that the Chancellor has helped people, and I'm very understandable that he wants to help people with the cost of living. I do think that the help to those that are worst off was a good thing, but this £400 bailout effectively to everybody, I do think is untargeted. It's going to be awfully costly, and I think there is a lot of better measures that the Chancellor could have reached for that he should have done. For example, bringing forward the 1p income tax cut and doubling it, and that would produce growth. That would keep people. That would let people keep more money in their back pockets, which would help them with the cost of living crisis. Because at the end of the day, the biggest bill that a family will pay in their year is the tax bill. So I would have liked to have seen the Chancellor doing a bit more on the other side of the ledger, rather than just handing out money to millionaires, as Sean said.